All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're really excited to dive in here to talk all about DFR, and we have a excellent list of panelists with us here today. I'd love to take a moment here to introduce everyone as part of this webinar that has joined us. We're going to dive in and go over the future of emergency response, paving the way of DFR technology. My name is Joe Kern, Strategic Partnership Manager here at DroneSense, but I would like to introduce you to a couple of our attendants here today. We'll start with Brandon Karr.
Yeah, thanks everybody for your time. My name is Brandon Karr. For those of y'all who don't know me, I'm the solutions engineer for Drone as First Responder for DroneSense. I started the Pearland Police Department's drone program here with Herbert Oubre and came over to DroneSense shortly after getting all the approvals for fully beyond visual line of sight there. So I'm here to help answer any questions that y'all may have about how DroneSense could potentially help be a solution for y'all for your Drone as First Responder program.
Excellent. Good stuff. Herbert, take a moment to introduce yourself.
Herbert Oubre, been with the PD now 16 years. Started the program with Karr here. Kind of carried on the DFR when he left us to go join y'all. It's been a lot of ups and downs as we go through the growth of it, but it's been a fun experience.
And I know there's a lot of questions coming in. Can you guys answer that you're related or not related at this moment?
We are definitely not related.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I know a lot of Q&A coming in there. But now I'd love to introduce Jason. Jason, can you introduce yourself and tell us exciting about your program there?
Yeah, definitely. Good to be on. Thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone who joined. So Jason Cokinos, I'm Montgomery County Police out here on the East Coast. We are in between, we border the District of Columbia. We're in between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. So Tony Galador, who's actually one of the attendees here, him and I worked on developing this DFR program in our agency. We'd already been using drones for a number of years. So last fall, October 2023, after about a year of research, we kicked off our program. So we are 2 sites currently, spinning up to 4 here shortly, having a blast, using DroneSense remote and just having a good time. And we're seeing a lot of successes. So excited to share what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to take a moment. We're going to use most of this webinar as something to kind of go over a bit of a panel. So this is a good place for everyone to discuss and use all of these subject matter experts here to kind of discuss. We did have an open question at the beginning, an icebreaker question. And I was curious to have the 3 of you kind of talk through this at the moment. And what excites you the most about the potential of DFR technology in your community? I'll pose this to Hubert.
I like to see the fact that we're going to better allocate our resources. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest issues we have in government is misuse of resources. And resources, so we're better prepared and better responding to calls and not wasting time on events where we don't need to, and prioritizing what needs to be taken care of.
Brandon Karr, I hear clearing calls with drones to prioritize other calls for service.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about DFR is every agency in the nation is short on personnel right now. Whether you're a police department or you're a fire department, EMS, whatever, everybody's short. And so one of the things that I love about DFR is it allows first responders to prioritize other calls for service that you could just clear with a drone on the low level stuff in the event that you're just got a ton of call for service volume stuck. So there's a lot of benefit to that to really help get those calls for services cleared and have first responders where first responders need to be.
Awesome. Jason, catching those bad guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, just what Brandon said. I mean, our DFR, we're getting there quick. We're getting there first in over 72% of the calls, and so we're putting cops back in service, which is awesome. You know, one of the big things for me is we've been able to provide some real-time information for de-escalation, but also tactical approach. We've had people armed with weapons, so coordinating officers coming in, best place to position themselves to be safe. But yeah, catching bad guys. I love catching bad guys, and you know, we've been getting there fast and actually seeing crime still in progress. We're over probably 225, 250 suspects, 250 suspects located. So it's just, it's been great.
Good stuff, gentlemen. Now, agenda for this webinar, I'm going to go over a couple points. We'll dive into some slides and get into some good panel discussion here. Agenda for today, we'll be going over current challenges in emergency response, introduction to DFR technology, the benefits of DFR and emergency response, obviously the challenges of implementing DFR, planning your DFR program, DroneSense remote, and we'll get into some Q&A. And once again, if you have any questions, those attending, please drop them in Q&A, and we would love to answer them at the end of this webinar. All right, so challenges in emergency response. Common challenges faced by emergency responders. Brandon, now, can we go over a couple of these here? We've got delayed response times, limited situational awareness, and high-risk environment. What would you say here?
Yeah, when it comes to some of the challenges that we face, just not utilizing DFR, right? For delayed response times, even if we're running code, lights and sirens blaring, trying to get everybody to move out of our way. I mean, Jason and Oubre can attest to this as well, as they see the woo-woos going in the background and they just anchor down in the roadway, right? And so now we got to go around them. There's tons of traffic and things of that nature. So utilizing a DFR program and utilizing a drone, we can go above all that, right, and be able to not have that restricted access. So it really enhances those delayed response times. Limited situation awareness, we have to just go off of what our dispatchers are saying. Jason, I would love to hear your perspective on that, because y'all utilize Live 911. Oubre has been testing that out or using it for a little bit now as well. They've just started using it. So I'd love to hear like how y'all are leveraging listening to the call for service versus what dispatchers are putting into the actual call notes, which is what we would get in the field, right? So that limited situation awareness is to the traditional way of just reading call notes, and what dispatchers give us is challenging. But utilizing drones allows us to get situation awareness once we get on scene. And then high risk environments, being a first responder, being a police officer specifically, just about every call we go to is a high risk environment sometimes. A lot of people don't attribute traffic stops of being a high risk environment, but that's where most officer involved shootings and use of forces occur. So just having the ability to utilize these to have situation awareness and be able to determine risk assessments and tactics and things of that nature goes a long way.
Right. Now, any other, I think you hit some great points there. And now, any other incidents where more traditional methods were maybe insufficient in some of these? I'd like to pose this to the rest of the group here. Hubert or Jason, what would you say maybe some other traditional methods that might, insufficient in some of this area?
I don't know about insufficient, just a lot of the stuff we're doing with DFR just makes us more efficient. We're able to get a better idea, like Brandon said, with the incorporation of Live 911. So the pilot hears the call as it's happening and can then use that knowledge to pick up and track cars or track people faster, and then relay that to the officer, so that we're not sending an officer to an area and then having to reroute him because things have changed and moved, and we don't have that information fast enough for the officer. People are able to get away, so we're able to catch more people. We're able to locate more missing people. Just make us more efficient at what we're doing already.
Thank you, Herbert.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that Live 911 piece. It's been huge for us. So when someone calls 911, we have a call taker that answers, obviously. We have a pre-scripted series of questions that have to be asked. And on average, that's about 2 minutes to gather that information before it gets sent to a dispatcher for dispatch in the appropriate district. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's not. But with Live 911, you have Rapid SOS and Anthony Alley. There'll be a map. When someone calls 911, you see on a pin right where it drops, where they're calling from. Then you hear the call. All I need to know is location and call type. So if someone says, hey, there's a fight going on here, we start sending the drone. Like, we don't need to wait to hear, okay, what's your callback number? What's your name? So that's how we're getting on scene many times before officers are even being dispatched. And then, like Herbert said, like, we're picking up on people where crimes are in progress, but really it's the giving officers the best information while they're responding in is huge. And we have escalated responses. hey, we need more officers, increase the priority of this. We've de-escalated responses. Hey, it's not what the 911 caller is alleging. We're overhead. And also, hey, yeah, no, this person's armed and they're behind the dumpster. When you come in, make sure you position yourself here. So live 911 has been huge. And in my opinion, I would say that anyone looking to do DFR or is doing DFR, if you haven't checked that software out, and I have no affiliation with the company, our program would not be as successful if it wasn't for live 911.
Excellent. Now, impact on effectiveness and safety, increased risk to responders and civilians, and ineffectiveness in resource allocation. Gentlemen, anything we'd like to say here?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes everybody more safe. I mean, you've seen the video in Chula Vista, and not only obviously them saving the life of the person pulling out of the car on fire, but we had a very similar situation with a weapons call. We had a call subject is pointing a handgun at community members at a local convenience store. We get there within 30 seconds with the drone. We're able to zoom in, and he's making gestures. He's got a shooter stance. He's got two-handed grip on an object, and it looks like he's holding the handgun. Well, with the 200 times zoom and everything that we're using on our Matrice 300, we zoom in and end up seeing it's a cell phone. Now, we still had officers go make investigation on this person who needed mental health help, but we were able to relay that information to officers so they didn't come in with their guns out, potentially getting a shooting. Because if you just see this guy passing by, it looks like he's holding a gun. So it helps with that risk to not only the community but the responders coming in. So it definitely helps that.
Excellent. Good stuff. Now let's do an introduction even more into DFR technology for those here. So drone as first responder. I can read off this, deploys drones to emergency before human responders, providing rapid assessment and real-time data to improve response time and safety. Gentlemen, what can we say a little bit more here on this?
Yeah, so
what is this too?
Yeah, it's just like we were talking about a little bit earlier. This is something that really enhances both resource allocation and tactics, right? And that's the entire point of DFR. We've been talking for years about first responder de-escalation and things of that nature. And so by utilizing DFR, it allows us, just like what Captain was mentioning earlier, to either escalate a call for service if we needed to, or de-escalate a call for service if we need to. It allows us to have those tactics and that information available to us. Having the ability to respond to those 911 calls is instrumental. Some people also respond to other calls for service that aren't necessarily an emergency call. They may be a non-emergency call for service that a drone might benefit a call for service for. Just thinking through on how that agency might want to leverage their DFR program to benefit their program. And then that 1 to 2 miles response time radius. There's a lot of agencies that are pushing for 3 miles. Most agencies have 2 miles, but it's just that time on scene and time to deploy, right? You always want to try to figure out where you want to place these systems so that the technology can get there quickly and provide situation awareness as fast as possible. You don't want to be flying that drone forever away to get there to say, yep, they're still there, to turn around and leave, right? While the first responders are still getting there, so you get back with battery. And then having the ability to control those aircrafts goes a really long way as well. It's not, I mean, Oubre and Captain could attest to it again. We get a lot of call for services, and the address that we're provided is not always accurate. So sometimes we may send it to the location, but you may also need to be able to take that drone over and adjust that based off of where the actual location of the call for service is.
Speaking to the actual technology of this, are there some core components and capabilities of DFR technology that are most beneficial in emergency situations?
Yeah, I mean, for us, so like we're a larger agency, but we don't have a helicopter. And so one thing I equate a lot of this to is, there's very similar technologies with regards to, that air support and that perspective from the air and the camera and stuff. So for us, we kind of explain it as like we have a couple little mini helicopters, right, that we can send out to these calls to provide that technology, that live streaming that we can send to an officer's cell phone, tablet, real-time crime center, command center. So we're seeing benefits in the technology with DroneSense. You could share the magic link and whatnot.
So, Herbert, what would you say? What features do you find the most critical in enhancing response efficiency in DFR?
Probably the best thing is, like you said, is that 200 times zoom. We're able to not even get close to an area and still be able to zoom in and really search. We had a not Amber Alert, a missing person alert come in, and the call was that they were seen in this area. It was a big shopping area, and one of our officers was able to get over the area and just start scanning the parking lot. Was able to locate the person that was called in about, and was able to, without ever sending an officer out there, determine that it wasn't the missing person. Was able to pull up her photo online and pull up the zoomed in image we had, and was able to say, yes, you can disregard all the officers. That's not her. It's a false alert. And just be able to do that with that camera without ever leaving an office is truly a amazing technology.
Something I like, being able to not call or be able to like disband a lot of calls like this. I mean, how often does that happen in y'all's experience?
I think our drones clearing about of the calls we go to, they're able to clear or reduce the response to a single officer in about 20 to 25% of all the calls we go to.
Wow.
And we are a little bit less than that. We're about 15%. I was optimistic we were going to be able to clear more, which our percentage is going up. But what we're finding is, because we're getting there so fast, a lot of times we're actually confirming crimes are happening. So, it has a benefit there too, right? And in getting, officers, situated to kind of intervene on those things. But we're about 15%.
Now, to the next year. Now, benefits of DFR and emergency response. Now, a couple points here: enhanced situational awareness, faster response times, improved safety for first responders, real-time data collection and analysis, increased coverage and reach, and improved coordination with multiple agencies. How has DFR technology enhanced situational awareness during y'all's operations?
Ultimately, it gives us the opportunity to see what's happening on scene before we put the first boots on the ground, and able to, like you said, enhance or de-escalate those officers, provide them the opportunity to come into a safe environment or a safer environment where they have knowledge of what's occurring, and not going into every situation just completely blind like we have for the last 200 years in law enforcement.
Yeah, we're actually seeing people ask, like, why are you only first on scene in about 72% of your calls? You have live 911, the drone gets there so quick. Well, we're never going to be 100% because we are seeing, of our total missions, we're seeing an increased request from officers on the ground who are already on scene of things. We may be on one call, we're getting ready to clear, and then we'll have an officer get on the air and ask for that air support, and then we'll respond over and help them. So obviously situational awareness when we're there first, but then also, getting requested by officers who see the value in it to help provide them situational awareness while they're working through something as well.
Brandon, is there any situations maybe you could describe, like a real time, that maybe made this a significant difference here?
Yeah, well, to the point, I was curious. I know that Paraland's done it a few times, but Kevin, are y'all also utilizing these, or if an officer requests a second unit that may be out on traffic or whatnot, or have somebody that's a little bit disorderly, that maybe you could put the drone up on top and then provide that situation awareness at that time? Are y'all also utilizing it for that?
Yep. Yeah. So we'll go out on officer assists, or we've been on events where an officer was on scene by themselves and the situation started to escalate. And we actually, I don't look at DFR as just flying the drone over a scene. You have the opportunity, if you have the right officers in the room, to have kind of a command presence and a command and control center. So we're overhead, solo officer on a call. Things look like they're escalating based on the subject's body language. We take over the call. We'll take over the radio. We'll get additional units, let that officer focus on the situation. And then, we're that virtual backup, and we'll start coordinating. Give me a second unit coming in from this direction and things of that nature.
Yeah, so that would attribute to that 70% too, right? Because you already had an officer on there, they asked you to get there, right? And so that would definitely attribute to that. Thank you.
Gentlemen, what are some unique benefits of DFR technology that aren't immediately obvious to new users of DFR tech?
Really the ability for our command staff to have a better idea of what actually is occurring in the field on a daily basis. A lot of times our supervisors are tied up on something over here and something is escalating on the other side of town. And it gives them the opportunity to actually sit down and just walk out to the car, be able to pull up a laptop and be able to watch live what's occurring and get a better idea of what resources they need to send out to something. And just a better way of knowing what we're doing and how we're being involved with the public. So it just gives everybody a much better idea. We had a great high risk traffic stop on some felons that were armed, and the drone was overhead, and everybody was able to watch and kind of see where we needed more people at. And by the time it was over with, they were using the drone to help know where to shut down roads at. The supervisor was coordinating via the drone, and never even had to make the scene until it was over.
Yeah, that supervisor coordination is big. From our operations room, we've been able to start setting up perimeters on events and fill in the gaps where, you know, you're a cop in the office, you can start finding a job, right? You know, you're flying, of course, and you're observing. But the one thing that we have kind of spiraled into a little bit, which we've seen benefit, was there'll be things happening, whether we'll get an LPR hit on a stolen vehicle, or we have, we're a very urban area, so we have plainclothes like street crimes teams that are doing surveillance, and they'll pick up subjects breaking into cars, right? And it's dark, and it's really hard to do a foot follow in an urban area at night. You know, so we're getting requests from our plainclothes guys like, hey, we're watching a crime in progress. Can you guys come help us? We'll get overhead, and we got eyes on, especially in the dark with the IR. We can, you know, track them and stuff. And then with that, we can send the video to the surveillance guys. They're watching it on their phone. And then what they're able to do is kind of step back and coordinate, okay, when are we going to take these guys off? And sometimes we've followed individuals for, you know, we've had to go back into 2 and 3 battery swaps until they got to a place where it was safe enough for the community and the surveillance team to jump out on these guys and not have chaos going on. So allowing officers to take their time and pick an opportune place tactically and for the community safety to make some of these higher risk arrests.
Thank you, Jason. Now, could everyone describe a little bit more about like coordination with multiple agencies and what that's like in this whole DFR technology?
We partnered with our fire department on all this as well. So we not only respond to all of our police calls, but we also respond to all outdoor medical calls and fire calls with them that are inside our ranges. And so we're coordinating with them and utilizing their radio system and their computer CAD, and having to learn to adjust some officers' lingo and technology and provide that intelligence to them. But again, to make them arrive on scene with more information, better knowledge, and give them a safer route in and out of calls. We're able to, a lot of times on our scenes where we have EMS staged inside our response areas, we're able to determine, hey, you can go ahead and send EMS up before the guys on scene even know that EMS is there. Just able to connect those two things together without having to guys on the ground to have to actually do the work.
And sorry, go ahead, Jason. I'll let you go ahead.
No, yeah, I was going to say fire rescue is a whole world that DFR really can benefit. And whereas we're focused on, you know, police calls, if it's a dual dispatch, we will fly it. And, you know, we've been overhead of a motorcycle accident first on scene, and, you know, we're not paramedics, but I'm like, that guy doesn't look good. So like, let's tell fire rescue, hey, you may want to upgrade that, you know, to an ALS response, or, you know, box alarms where we're first on scene and there's no smoke showing. Like, they're still sending an engine in to check it out, but we can potentially reduce sending, you know, 3 ladder trucks, 6 engines, a battalion chief. You know, we're there's nothing showing. You know, so I think there's value not only in police, but obviously fire, and then obviously emergency management and other stuff.
Yeah, to add what y'all are mentioning, I mean, think about this from a critical incident response, right? Like an active shooter response. If we were able to get the drone overhead and get it on scene, we could start providing that to all the mutual aid agencies that are going to respond to an active shooter type response, right? With this going into Ops Hub, we can also coordinate that with our ground pilots as well, flying their drones out of the back of their shops. So you can really help with that, not only first on scene, but also to continue to do the analysis, investigation, searches per person, things of that nature, utilizing these DFR programs as a supplement to what you would already respond to with for a critical incident.
Excellent. Well, good stuff. Now we have a moment to let Jason, your program, shine here with the Montgomery County video.
Yeah, the stats may be a little outdated, but the video is still what we're seeing.
Just for situation where if there's audio, I'm not hearing it.
Working on that. Looks like I'm not hearing it as well. Jason, if you have any points you'd like to speak over in this, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'll be your audio. It's just you know, it's a track from Hans Zimmer that's playing in the background, some nice instrumental. But we're
Good
over
choice.
1,000. We hit last week our over 1,000 DFR flights. You know, we're up to about 72% first on scene, and we're still averaging that 60-second response time. This is our bread and butter, foot chases. We get a lot of foot chases. We're able to call them out and set up perimeters and get things squared away to help in apprehension. Seeing things live, that last one was an active fight, and then we're up over probably 250 people that we're getting in custody. You know, we're getting on scene first like this, seeing guys breaking into cars, you know, still. So we'll start setting up officers in this parking garage, get that guy in custody. And you know, a variety of calls, you know, theft, and they don't look up, right? The bad guys don't look up. Like, this guy's breaking a window out of a car and going to steal some things from the inside. Theft from autos, shopliftings, assaults, weapons calls. It's a good variety. And then this is a little outdated. We're over 150 incidents where we've put over 300 cops back in service. So.
Wow, nice. Now, in Montgomery County, you guys, you are using DroneSense, correct?
Yep, we are using DroneSense Remote. We've been a DroneSense customer before DFR, so you know, we're using Remote now, and you know, all the things Brandon's talked about in many of these presentations. You know, the Ops Hub and Airbase and all these different features. It all integrates in nicely, and it works well.
Excellent. Good stuff. And now,
biggest advantage that our DFR program brings to our agency and the public is that we can provide real-time information and allocate resources before responders ever make it on scene. Generally, we get called someone's having a pretty bad day. So if they're already having a bad day, I want to be the best part of that day.
Now we're going to move into talking about some of the challenges of implementing DFR. So regulatory land, airspace restrictions, limited flight time, and privacy concerns. Now, gentlemen, if we would say, what would be some of these key steps to look to integrate DFR technology into existing emergency response protocols? What would we say? Herbert.
So one of the big things I'll talk about on this is the flight times. So it's a big difference between traditional DFR, like they're doing in Montgomery County, and what we're doing here. We just don't have the repetitive ability to fly over and over and over. So we have to more prioritize what we fly for. And we have to focus on the fact that that drone's going to come back, and it's going to be, because we're remote charging, it's going to be a 1-to-1, basically minute of flight time to minute of charge time. So for every minute it's out, it's got to sit on the charger that long before we can send it back out again. So that kind of limits on what we can do and how long we can stay on the scene. It doesn't allow us the ability to, like you said, follow people, but it's able to keep us down to a one-person operation. Our entire program is run by one person for the day, and we don't need anyone else to assist in those. But at the same time, we have tons of technology. That technology is all new and growing, and so some days it works amazingly, and you just sit back and hit the keyboard and watch it fly. And some days you fight it like you do your cell phone, and you just want to chuck it out the window. But so that's the back and forth on doing it the way we were doing it. We did get the opportunity to sit down with the ACLU when we developed our policy, and really discuss with them on what their goal and our goal were on privacy issues, and had a good discussion with them. They were very open and honest with us, and not trying to shut us down in any way, shape, or form, just trying to get a better idea of how we plan to use it and get an idea of see where we were on not using against people that they don't want to use against. Their biggest concern was that we were just going to be videotaping everything, and we were going to go back and watch those videos and try to find nitpicky things to mess with people over. And once we explained to them that we just wanted the videos there simply for the fact that if somebody was to file a complaint saying that there was an issue going on, and that we were monitoring them, we could show them the video. We set it on a 0 degree camera angle, so that while the drone's traversing to and from a call, there's no video of the ground, so no people are in the videos. And then we matched our video retention policy to our body camera retention policy, so that those are mirrored, and they know how long we're going to keep it for. They know what we're doing with it, and we have no intention of ever going back and reviewing it, minus, a homicide or an armed robbery or something that occurs in our flight path. Those might get reviewed, but outside of that, we would never be watching them for any of those other purposes that they were concerned about.
Now, with some privacy concerns, Brandon, with using DroneSense, what would you say can help alleviate some of those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, Oubre nailed it on the head. Reaching out to ACLU, being very transparent in your program, things of that nature will really help with hardening your program to make sure that you're not going to be running any kind of community disgruntledness about the program. But there are a lot of things that DroneSense can provide to allow you to be able to be transparent, like the transparency page, which Captain's program was founded on, as well as being able to go through those flight logs and show them where the drone was, where it flew, things of that nature with all of our automated logging. But I know privacy was kind of the cornerstone for your program, Captain. If you want to expand on that a little bit, that'd be great. Awesome.
Yeah, the DroneSense flight maps, which I will say was the easiest thing to implement in this whole program. You just the system all makes it. You just put the end of the web link that you want to make it be, and it makes the web page for you. And I was like, wow, this is great. So that's been huge for us. We have we're very thankful at Chula Vista, California. We use Power BI. They gave us the code. If you go to Montgomery County, Maryland Police DFR page, you'll see our chart updates every shift with the statistics, and then the flight maps are available as soon as the remote operator finishes the call and puts it in. But so that transparency has been huge. We did a lot of town halls and engagement. You just can't, well, depending on your community. For us, we couldn't just roll this out. We had to do a lot of front work. So community sessions, education, council members and local leaders and everything. And so they were concerned with, obviously the visual intrusions with the camera. So when we take off our camera, our gimbal's up until we get on scene. We don't record till we get on scene. Same thing what Herbert said. We put our videos into evidence.com. Everything's mirrored with our body camera. They were very concerned with facial recognition and audio intercepts. So for our DFR program, the video does not integrate with any facial recognition software. And then obviously we're not collecting any audio recordings. So those were things we just basically heard what's the community concerned about, and we just did education. And some of the stuff that we knew wasn't a capability, we still put it in our policy as prohibited, just because that's what people want to see it in writing. When you're up at 330 feet, you're not going to be listening to Sally Soccer Mom's conversation at Starbucks, but we put it in our policy because that was what the community wanted to see. So, But yeah, we're doing pretty good. The people are happy with that. You know, even the ACLU, we just had a Washington Post article come out, I think a day or two ago, and even the ACLU quoted in there that they were, you know, very, I guess, happy. They're never going to be totally happy, but they were happy with how we had our program going.
Excellent. Now, gentlemen, what are some of the key steps you took to integrate DFR technology into your existing emergency response protocols?
I can jump on one thing, and it kind of ties into the previous slide. For us, it was building a relationship with FAA. And you know, we're in the DC flight restricted zone, one of the most restricted airspace in the country. And before we even, you know, did anything, we went down and started building relationships. You know, we have existing waivers and stuff to operate in that airspace, but we wanted to make sure that they knew exactly what we were doing. We want to make sure that we're abiding by how they want us to do it. And so half our jurisdiction is in the flight restricted zone and half is not. So our 2 DFR sites that we started with are inside the FRZ. So it's been challenging. We can't do BVLOS operations in the FRZ. We have to have staff on the rooftop. So in the FRZ, we couldn't do what Herbert and you guys are doing in Pearland with just the drone in the box technology. So we have to maintain people on the roof. You know, once we go outside, our site that we're about to start here in a couple of weeks in Gaithersburg, Maryland, is outside the FRZ. So we do have a BVLOS waiver, and we're excited about how that's going to differ with inside the FRZ. But airspace, that's the first step, at least in our book, to understand that. And obviously you have a bunch else on here.
Excellent. Now, as we move on to another slide here on planning your DFR programs and key considerations, I do want to answer a question here and post to the group from Michael here. He's looking to try to figure out a better way to provide coverage within an area around 300-ish square miles, aside from focusing on more densely populated areas. Gentlemen.
I mean, we're looking, I'm sure Brandon and Herbert know more about this, but, you know, obviously you're limited with the Matrice 300, 350, whatever you're using with battery life and distance and stuff. I mean, there's a whole host of new technology that's currently underway, right, with VTOLs and different things like that, and you know, drones that can fly for 2 hours and 100 miles an hour and different things like that. And so it's understanding, but for us, it's understanding what integrates into, we're a DroneSense user and DroneSense remote, so what can integrate into whatever piloting software you're using.
Yeah, the only solution I can say, you'd have to have some sort of VTOL system that could just be up and patrolling. But then you run into a whole bunch of new privacy issues that the community is going to want to talk about with an aircraft that's just up there monitoring all the time. That's going to be a challenge you have to go through.
And Michael, my response is to get with your crime analyst and figure out where your call for services volumes are. Because I guarantee you there's places in that 300 square miles that you'll never send deputies to. So you're not going to want to infrastructure out a DFR program for those areas because there's just not a return on investment for that. So prioritize where your call for service volumes are, and I'll bet you can really limit down that 300 square miles to where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And also, you don't have to just start everything at once, right? You don't have to do all encompassing, just like Pearland as well as Montgomery, both did not do a complete phased out rollout on day one, right? So crawl, walk, run approach it, and build out as you get those successes, and it's a lot easier to sell after that.
Yeah, I mean, we're 590 square miles, I think, and you know, we're not even scratching the surface. But I definitely agree with Brandon. You know, there's a cost to this, depending how you do it and depending your airspace. If you can do drone in the box, if you can reduce how many staff you have, you know, obviously you could put more boxes. And with DroneSense, right, you'll type in the address and it's going to sync you with the closest drone in that airspace or that operational area. But yeah, you don't have to go full 300 right away. You can kind of work yourself up. But data, that's how we're deciding where we're putting things is, you know, where's our shortest staffing, our highest calls for service, our crime problems, and just letting it be data driven.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now with this, are there any little other other nuggets of information and of advice that you would give agencies looking to integrate DFR technology into their system? Is there any other little pieces you would say?
Don't reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of good people out there, a lot of agencies that are, we took about a year to get our thing researched. We went out, saw Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, Chula Vista. We talked to a lot of people. There's a lot of experts doing a lot of great things, and that helped us to avoid mistakes. And don't rush to implement it. You'll be excited to want to get it, but you got to make sure you hit those, get those key stakeholders bought in. You're obviously within the department, you have to get your police leadership bought in, your local politicians, and then your community, and then obviously FAA and things like that, whatever your stakeholder groups are. Because once everyone's pumped about it, and that's what's happening here in Montgomery County, everybody's pumped about it, that now it's easy. I got communities that are demanding, our county executive, we're in the process of rolling out site 3 and 4. And last Tuesday, he's already talking about site 5 and 6. And I'm like, hey, sir, like we need to, we need to get things operating before we can expand. So once you get other people bought in, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Then you're just going to sit back and have fun and run calls. And yeah.
Excellent. Well, and as the slide here is, planning your DFR program and key considerations, I think you're hitting perfect on community awareness. Is there anything else you'd like to say on that? And then I'll walk through each of these points with you, gentlemen.
Just talk to your community, let them know what you're doing, keep them in the loop. They're hesitant of it just because it's new technology. It's something different out there, but as long as you keep them in the loop and give them an idea, they get to see where we go. We're always open to letting people watch the video feeds when we're up flying. We're not going to see anything you can't see from an airplane. So we're not hiding anything we're doing. We're trying to be as open and honest as we can about it.
Yeah, and as far as the planning DFR program and nuggets, training is always at the heart of a lot of what I talk about. Because if you don't have your people properly trained, they're not going to be successful. They're not going to be efficient. And they may get there, but it's going to be, pulling teeth the whole way there. And so there's a lot of training considerations that go into a DFR program because it's very different. You're not just flying the drone where, even though you're flying over RF, there's a feel to the aircraft. DroneSense remote feels differently than if you're flying it just on the RC. And so going into training on, what kind of behavior the aircraft is supposed to act like on a good day, and being able to troubleshoot those things on a bad day, go into a lot of a DFR program because you can't always just see it, right? You're flying this on a TO from a teleoperator perspective, and so that's challenging. From a hardware perspective, a software perspective, all of those things go into a good foundation of good training, is what I would really like to highlight, because you have to not only be trained on the hardware and the software, but also what are your deconfliction procedures in accordance with your BB loss authorization, so that you're doing it legally, so that the data you're collecting can go to court, right? And it's not for the poisonous tree. So training is always near and dear to my heart, for making sure that you have a good program.
And I'll even piggyback on that because training is huge. A step even before training is picking the right people. And so, you want people that are resilient, because if there is a tech glitch, you don't want them just to give up. We got to fight through it. If there's some type of, and also someone who is smart enough to look at everything, right? The drone to control, or the controller, if it's someone like we have people on the roof, right? We have the drone to control, we have controller through internet, through DroneSense to our remote operations center. So if there's a tech issue, let's quickly triage this on the fly. Where could it be? How can we adjust it? So being able to fight through tech glitches, but someone who's proactive, attention to detail. We want them listening to live 911, hunting the CAD, listening to the radio, paying attention, because speed is the name of the game. We want the drone to get there quick. So having the right people in the room, or having the right people flying, you don't want someone that's going to be sitting there watching YouTube all day and then they're missing all these calls for service. But then you got to make sure they're properly trained. Yeah,
to your point, Kevin, that was near and dear to my heart. After my first selected pilot, I had to make sure I got it right on the second one. Right, Oubre.
I'll save my comments for later.
Good stuff, gentlemen. And as we walk through each of these, I mean, this is all it's a whole gambit of it all together, right? It's not one, it's everything here. A couple points that I'd love to open up is policy and legislation. Can we chat further on that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
yeah, I would say, and I'll say it's one quick thing and let Herbert run on it. A lot of times cops, and I've been guilty of this before, we think we know what's good for people, right? It's interesting in this. We did a lot of listening of the community. And sometimes you'll hear things and you'll say, well, that's silly. Well, it might be silly to you, but it's not silly to them. And so if there's things that you can put into your policies or your procedures that, listen, sometimes a community, they may not be technical experts in this, but they have some good ideas. And so I think being willing to take something that is a concern of the community and put it into your policy, like for us, like we put in the no audio intercepts. We don't have anything that can do that, but we put it in there because it was important to the community. So I think just having that open mind and not disregarding during your policy creations and your operational procedures. Another thing, we got a good idea when we're about to clear a call. We have a procedure that we call the complainant before we clear the call, if we can get a hold of them. You know, tell them, hey, we're overhead with a police drone, so you're getting some community engagement there. But then, is there anything else, you know, that we need to know? Because when we're going to clear a call, we really want to make sure we don't cut corners and we're not canceling a unit that should be going. But that was a discussion with a community member in a town hall. They said, well, if you're coming and clearing these calls with the drone, how am I going to know I got police service? Well, that's a good point. So we wrote in a procedure that we call the complainant. So just being open-minded with that. And I think when people feel like they have a say in the policy, you get a lot more community, you know, stuff. But sorry, Herbert, I cut you off.
I agree with you there. It's a huge thing to discuss with them and be open, honest with them and let them have some input. We do the same. We call our complainants. But the other thing is to think about the aviation industry that you're entering into. You know, we're putting a drone in places that no drone's usually at on a regular basis, and a lot of pilots are flying around. Well, we're in a controlled airspace. A lot of pilots are flying around us, and they expect us to hold ourselves to the same safety standards that the airline industry holds themselves to. And so, like, we get a lot of grief because our policy requires us to inspect our aircraft every day. And that means one of our pilots, when he comes on, has to drive the city and go check each aircraft and make sure it's safe and airworthy and the systems are operational. But at the same time, when I go fly on a commercial flight across the country, I expect to see the pilot get out of the aircraft and walk around that plane and look at that 747 and make sure it's safe to fly, even though he may not be the most qualified person to look at it and say it's safe to operate. Same thing for us. We got to make sure that we have an operational aircraft that's not going to fall out of the sky. It's not going to hit a person, not going to cause damage to an aircraft. So it's a big thing to take on that beyond visual line of sight flight into airspace and to make sure that we're doing it safely with the aviation industry.
Excellent. Good stuff, gentlemen. Now, with all of this leads us into the solution to DFR. Slide, please. Let's go to the solution of DroneSense Remote. Now, benefits and features of DSR. I'd like to open this up to Brandon Karr.
Yeah, so one of the things that we provide, being a DroneSense Remote customer, is we do support you with your BB loss waiver support. We have access to some fantastic people in the FAA to help support any complex waiver that you may have. Like Captain mentioned a little bit earlier, if they can get them in the freeze, we can get them anywhere. So that's by far the most complicated airspace to get an authorization for. And we've done it on both freeze side of the house. We've been able to get it for traditional DFR as well as fully beyond visual line of sight with Paralance. So we can absolutely help walk you through how to get your waiver regardless of how complex that airspace may look like. What's also really nice about our system is our keyboard functionality, user interface, and whatnot are fairly customizable. With the PlayStation 5 controller that we fly from, it's fully customizable. You can adjust that controller to the user however they want, so that you can build in that muscle memory for whatever type of functionality you're looking to do. We also have keyboard functionality built into here. We are working on getting all kinds of integrations for different detect and avoid solutions, so that we can react to whatever type of systems that you're wanting to build in for your drone as first responder program. Just as Captain Cokinos and Officer Oubre had mentioned a little bit earlier, we do have that purpose-built call for service with the ability to have that publicly facing dashboard. We designed that around public safety. We are still growing with that as well to put some new stuff into there here in the very near future that we're super excited about. That autonomous flight to location, you can autonomous tell it where you want it to go. There's 5 different ways to send that aircraft. You can do latitude, longitude, you can do what 3 words, you can do an address point, you can do a tactical takeoff, you could do a manual deployment as well, or a standoff. We also have the ability to do geofencing, so that if you wanted to say, this is my operational environment, whether via a circle or a polygon, you can do that. We have floating geofences available to you. We have static geofences if you want to do that. And then again, we talked a little bit earlier about that streaming into OpSub, so that you can have your ground-based operations and your DFR operations all coming into one situational awareness platform. Because you're flying our systems, you have the ability to have fleet data management as well, so you can see how often those docks are being flown, when was the last time they flew, where did they fly, what batteries were used. All of that data is available to you, just like it is for all the rest of your fleet, which is fantastic. And then we also have, for traditional operations, we have that tactical and emergency mode. So in the event that you need to do those tactical takeoffs or tactical standoffs, so that you can get that very specific location to place that aircraft, you have that capability. Or in the event that you are trying to meet an emergency event, you'll have the ability to declare an emergency and be able to remove all geofences so that you can safely mitigate that emergency. All of that is built into our standard platform for DroneSense Remote.
Excellent. Thank you, Brandon. Now, Jason and Herbert, any of these key points of DroneSense Remote that really stand out to you or have been extremely beneficial to you that you could speak on?
The customization for each pilot. I mean, each of us likes to do things a little differently. We have some of our guys that like to fly on keyboard, and most of us fly on a controller, but we have different settings on the controls and what key does what. So that easy transition between pilots to just be able to grab the control, know it's set up for you that day, and to operate. The geofences are nice. We have 2 heliports within our operational zone that we're able to block out. So I know that my guys aren't flying over those heliports, and there's no issues there between us and those hospital helicopters coming and going. That's a nice feature for us.
Yeah, I like the ability to use the mouse, keyboard, and PS5 controller. So when you're zoomed in, you want the camera to move with very small precision potentially, and that's where you can use the keypad left and right, or the keyboard left and right. Versus the joysticks where if you're zoomed in, your video may shoot. You got to be treat it softly. The calls for service logs are huge for us. Because of our transparency, we want we mandate, but we want to show our community every flight that it's tied to a police call for service. So just for us, we fly any 911 generated or police generated call for service. We don't fly calls that occurred earlier where no suspects on scene. So we publish those call for service logs on our website. The autonomous flight is awesome. So you can click on the map. If you're very familiar with the area, you can type in the address, and the drone will go there. The drone's flying there, obviously. That allows you to still listen to live 911 and radio calls and kind of get your mind right with what you're coming into. The geofencing is huge. We geofence the District of Columbia. We do not fly into the District of Columbia. We geofence a number of high-rise safety issues that we have, radio towers and stuff. So that geofencing provides you with a level of comfort that you don't have to worry about, per se, the drone going where it shouldn't be. And because safety is a big deal, and Herbert brought it up, we do aircraft inspections every day, and the last thing you want is to have a unintentional mishap or a safety issue, especially if you're trying to get your program up and running. So the fleet management, we do everything's logged in DroneSense, right? All of our preventive maintenances, If we have a safety incident, we're using the DroneSense safety report to log everything. So definitely a nice overall software program for everything.
Excellent. Good stuff, gentlemen. Now, to move on to some of these final points here, if you would like to learn more about DFR, we've got some contact information, just like what Jason was saying. This is asking lots of questions, doing lots of research, and looking to those that have already, made a wheel or invented part of a wheel and such. Here's some contact information. Otherwise, please reach out to us too. You can use this QR code, some of the magic video link, to know more with DroneSense with that. Otherwise, would love to open this up to questions to our attendants here. We do have a Q&A there at the bottom of the screen if anyone does have any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to start posing a few here at the moment. Excellent. So, gentlemen, what are some future innovations in DFR technology you're the most excited about?
Probably for us on the BV loss side is quicker response time. So that's the biggest downfall to the BV loss side is that where the traditional side's able to leave their drone on and have it ready to go at all times. Ours has to start up, and it's a growth process for everybody to figure out how to make that happen faster. Right now, we average about 45 seconds from the time we tell it to go until it's turned on, ready to go and flying. So just seeing that decreased time and be more readily available at a faster pace is probably what I look forward to the most, to get us those quicker response times, get us there faster, and able to better provide service.
Yeah, I'll jump on that. I mean, the future, what I'm excited about, hopefully, is because this is such a growing thing, is as everyone's out there trying to make their drones better, whether it's DJI or whether it's American made or whatever, but we want to be able to fly faster and fly longer. So as these new drones or things are created, and they can get integrated into DroneSense Remote, and we have a larger pool of drones to choose from depending on what your operational need is, it's going to be pretty exciting. Because if we can get there faster and we can fly longer, then we can do more, right? So.
Excellent. Now, gentlemen, how can agencies stay updated on the latest advancements and best practices in the DFR technology? Are there any resources or communities you might recommend?
I recommend Drone Responders as one. There's many things out there, but obviously you can join that. For those that are involved in DFR or wanting to get in DFR, they have a DFR nationwide call meeting, which is really informative. Obviously, I follow the DroneSense YouTube channel. I have no kickback for that, but I do.
For those out there, we do have a working group on Fridays to join. Definitely have a lot of good nuggets of information in there. I would love to see you in there.
Yeah, some of the other resources, the Drone Responders DFR working group is fantastic. That has been ongoing for a few years now. It's a wealth of information. Law Enforcement Drone Associations, their conference, typically Oubre is also speaking about DFR there. So there's some real good opportunities there through Law Enforcement Drone Association. We also have had discussions at multiple different conferences like AppsCon, Commercial UAV, Interpol Drone Expert Summit, and a few other conferences that are available. So, also following the working groups, our Facebook channel, our private group that we have there, we also release some stuff there as well, or all some really good avenues for information as well. Kelsey, I see that you asked a question asking if DFR was being utilized with community events for crowd control proactively or reactively, and the answer is yes. Beverly Hills, California is utilizing their drone proactively for all kinds of things. But people could also leverage DFR in the event that there was a major incident that occurred during a community event. There are some privacy concerns that go into it, and that's going to be very environmental. So like going back to Jason's point about how they didn't want any audio or facial recognition, things of that nature, Beverly Hills actually asked for it. So it is very environmental based off of the community that you're serving as to what you're going to fly for. But some communities don't mind the Overwatch. Some communities do not want Overwatch. So it's going to be dependent on that. But you absolutely could leverage a DFR program at either reactively or proactively, depending on your community support for those kind of operations. Great question.
And I'll jump on that because Beverly Hills is a very interesting jurisdiction. You have over 2,500 cameras, and I think they're only 5 square miles or whatever. But it's interesting as we expand our DFR. When we've been doing our community town halls, I've been getting more questions about, well, why wouldn't you use it for facial recognition? Why wouldn't you patrol with it? And my response to that is, all of this is community driven. We can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's if you want us to do it. So like our policy bans us from using our DFR proactively during a lawful First Amendment event. So we will not have a drone up monitoring a First Amendment event. However, if it becomes unlawful, if there's a crime, if there's an emergency call, then we can introduce the drone into that. But that's something we've worked out with our community. We had a community event recently, and so it was within our DFR area. So the drone team was made aware of it. They were monitoring calls that could pop up in that area, and they were prepared to send the drone, but we didn't send it proactively to anything.
Excellent. Now, gentlemen, I know we're coming up on time at this moment right now, so I just want to say thank you again, Herbert, Brandon, Jason. Now, as we leave, I'd like to ask you, is there any key takeaways you hope the attendants of this webinar remember from today's discussion?
The biggest thing I would tell you to take away is each agency is unique in how you do DFR and what your goals and outcomes will be. Everybody's unique. Don't try to compare your apples to other people's apples. They're just going to be different. What our goals are, what our achievements are, is not going to be the same as what Montgomery County's is, what Chula Vista is. We just have different call volumes, different needs of the community. So be open with your own goals, and don't try to achieve everybody else's goals.
That's a good point, because there's a lot of different ways to use drones in public safety, and you just got to see what fits for you. And everyone's doing it their own way, and that's the right way for them. And it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong if you're not doing what Beverly Hills is doing or something like that. So I think a takeaway from my point is that however you decide to do it, like I think we're going to get to a point here in the future where if you're not doing it, you'll be behind the times in many regards, because this is just so beneficial. And like I said, Pearland does it differently than we do. We do it a little differently than some other places, but everyone's having successes in what they want to see out of it. And because it's so successful, to do law enforcement without it at some point is going to be foreign.
Yeah. Fully agree.
Excellent. Well, good stuff. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on this DFR webinar. Thank you again to my panelists, and thank you again to all attendees. Please reach out to us if you'd like to know more. We're here to answer those questions and such. But once again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you all soon.